exaggerators quit doling out that bad economy line?
Well, they're sick and getting sicker. You know, an article written not long ago about what happened really at Bear Stearns is that there's it's so paper thin until even the rumor, the suggestion can undermine this house of cards, and we see evidence of it taking place. And so until you balance off the playing field, that's why globalization of capital, where you really close plants, erode tax base, have incentives to close plants, as opposed to save plants and reinvest in America, where you move to a cheaper, more exploitable markets. We have less regulation on the environment, workers' rights, women's rights, children's rights. The logical conclusion of that imbalance is what we have today, which is a house built on sand, and the sand the wind is blowing and the sand is eroding.
Let me ask you about Senator Obama's Invesco speech. Were you there at the stadium? 84,000 people in Denver. Your thoughts? Well,
I was very impressed. I must admit that I had kind of one eye on him and one eye was tearing. I kind of promised to not cry that night, because my mind was on August 28, 1955, Emmett Till was lynched. August 28, 1963, Dr. King speaking about ending apartheid while living on the apartheid, Southern segregation. Here we are in 2008. What a magnificent journey from Mississippi to Memphis, to Washington, to Denver. So I thought about the martyrs, the murdered, the martyrs who made that day possible. In some sense, Barack really is running the last lap of a 54-year marathon, from ruling race and gender supremacy legal in 1954 to 1965, the Voting Rights Act, and then modifying it so as to lower the threshold and have proportionality. He's running like any great, strong finisher, a great, strong lap. But 54 years of struggle has led to this conclusion, and my heart rejoices at his success. And I think that the combination of Barack and Joe Biden is the best America has to offer, and I think it's a good offering.
Well, let me ask you about one of the issues that Senator Obama addressed during that speech. Well, Democracy Now! Correspondent Jeremy Scahill, I think, caught up with you at the Invesco Stadium in Denver just after Senator Obama's acceptance speech.
We heard Barack Obama invoke Martin Luther King's name tonight in a speech where he also called for an escalation of the war in Afghanistan. Do you see a contradiction?
No. The issue in Afghanistan is to stop war from spreading.
But Dr. King was a pacifist.
Hey, how are you, Reverend? Good to see you, sir.
Dr. King said he thought that stopping Hitler's reign was worth the risk. He was said on one occasion, while he was a pacifist, he would have joined those theologians that sought to overthrow Hitler. So he was not naive about war. He just thought we should not engage in unnecessary wars. And Iraq was an unnecessary war. Stopping the Taliban is quite necessary. Stopping nuclear proliferation in Pakistan is quite necessary. So you kind of have to have a blend, I think, of tough mind and tender heart.
The next morning after the speech, we had Professor Michael Eric Dyson in, and we asked him about Senator Obama's call for expanding the war in Afghanistan.
The escalation in Afghanistan, that Dr. King would have supported that. Now, there's a way to say that you could support that in this day and age. I don't know if Dr. King would have supported the escalation in Afghanistan, because Martin Luther King Jr., after all, is a moral leader and a political figure insofar as he's dealing with the distribution of resources. He's not a politician. So I think Martin Luther King Jr. would have been a handful for any president now, including Barack Obama. It would have been interesting, and I obviously, as a surrogate of Senator Obama, and have supported him from the very beginning, because I've known him for a number of years. But to contend that Martin Luther King Jr. Would support the intensification in Afghanistan would be problematic. I think that Mr. Obama himself said, when asked the question before, during the South Carolina debate, tell us why Martin Luther King Jr. would support you. He said he wouldn't. He wouldn't support any presidential candidate. He would get America as a public to hold me accountable, because change happens from the bottom up, not the top down.
That's Professor Michael Eric Dyson. Both of you are supporters of Barack Obama, but your thoughts?
Well, you know, in the Civil War, to save the Union, to end slavery, Dr. King would have been with the Union. He wouldn't have been in some neutral zone. In the war, to end Hitler's reign, I heard him say on more than one occasion, while he was against wars, that those theologians, Bonhoeffer and others of them, were organized to overthrow Hitler, he would have joined that. He saw Hitler as consummate evil in the world. So he was, while he was a pacifist, always seeking reconciliation and seeking the live option out, he was not naive about war. My concern here, as we try to reinvent Dr. King, as it were, is that, first of all, we went into Iraq unnecessarily and really unprovoked. But in Afghanistan, the war is shifting there. Now you have the Taliban there, and Al-Qaeda is there, and then Pakistan, which has nuclear weapons. We must have a strong position on the negotiation from strength and peace, given very live options.
But do you think intensification of war is the answer, or diplomacy?
Well,
shoring up the people of Afghanistan.
I mean, actually, Barack has been very strong on the issue of aggressive diplomacy. On the other hand, if Al-Qaeda and Taliban, those forces keep coming, you cannot stand idly by as they keep killing people and keep expanding the war.
But with this intensification just over the last few weeks, the U.S.-NATO bombings, the most recent controversial killing of 90 people, perhaps 60 of them children, and we're seeing this increasing with this intensification.
That is problematic, and going into parts of Pakistan is problematic. And obviously, that spread is not a good thing. But it's going to take some delicate use of strong diplomacy and military security, because the forces we are fighting seem to be playing by a very different set of rules. And that's why in these wars you need allies. Bush gave us in Iraq an onion-thin layer of a coalition. And when the going got thick, they pull out. We're left by ourselves. The value really of having a coalition of nations together against the spread of terrorism, and in some sense fight terrorism not just with bombs but with bread and medicine and health and education and jobs, becomes our ultimate weapon, is to make people more secure, not make people extinguished.
I want to talk about the issue of race. There was a piece posted on Alternet by Adele Stan. A Christian right voter summit sells racist Obama waffles. At the annual Washington gathering of the Christian right, sponsored by the political arm of Family Research Council, Republican Party's top emissaries have come in past years to bow before some 2,000 right-wing foot soldiers and leaders who command them. However, this year's value voter summit, a bit light on GOP dignitaries, made less news in its speaker lineup than it did for the sale of a particular brand of breakfast food, Obama waffles. In the far corner of the exhibit hall at the Values Voter Summit, two gonzo entrepreneurs hawked a product they described as political satire, a box of waffle mix emblazoned with a cartoon image of a bug-eyed, toothy, dark-lipped Barack Obama eyeing a plate of waffles. A pat of butter on the waffles is stamped 2008. On the top flap, the Obama cartoon appears in a turban next to an arrow printed with the text, "Point box toward Mecca for tastier waffles." The box of mix is a crude send-up of Aunt Jemima's pancake mix, which once featured stereotyped image of a round-faced turban black woman as its trademark.
You know, that's a takeoff on Uncle Ben's rice and Aunt Jemima and all of those stereotypes. But more Americans are becoming more mature in the question of race and gender. And I look back this year, and I saw Barack in Mississippi, and whites coming to Jackson State to vote for him, and men voting for Hillary. Clearly, they had become the conduits through which a new and more mature America is speaking. I mean, this is the state where Emmett Till was lynched, Randall Goodman Cheney was killed, McGivers was killed. This year, as people sought to vote, there was no terrorism to resist the voting. So in our growth, we hope that these kind of forces will be marginalized. And I say that you fight this not with counterattacking, but with bold leadership. For example, while they are dealing with waffle pancakes, I say have a press conference in front of Lehman Brothers. Make that the agenda. I say go to a coal mine where people died because mines were not safe and people lost their lives. And Appalachia, I mean, every 6 hours a coal miner dies from black lung disease today. I mean, take the agenda to urban America where a plant is closed, jobs left, tax base eroded, school closed, and there's high crime. I mean, you only fight the swift boat schemers, I think, with a bold counterattack on issues that people cannot avoid.
Now, Senator Obama has raised as much money as Senator McCain from Wall Street.
Yes, but he's facing an interesting cultural phenomena in Governor Sarah Palin. Here's a case where you have some women where Roe v. Wade has been a deal breaker. They're going to vote for her anyhow. You have some labor where NLRB and Right to Organize has been a deal breaker. They're going to vote for him. And you have a case where most tourists have traveled more of the world than she has, and yet some people will prop up as a foreign policy expert. And they will think today to ask her about Afghanistan or Pakistan or Lehman Brothers is like off limits.